G'day, Richard Harris. I'm back in the shed, and today, more things to torture in the pressure pot. Hey, welcome back. Sorry, it's been a little while since the last video, but I've been very busy actually diving, which is a nice change. So lots of stuff to talk about in the upcoming episodes, although they're going to be a little bit slow to be released because, as I say, fortunately I'm actually getting in the water a bit at the moment, which is terrific. Today I've been sent some lights from Dive Gear Express on the condition that I'll put them in the pot and see what we can do to them. Now, you might recall from a previous video I actually have already tested a couple of their lights, but they've sent me some new ones, and I'll just show you what we've got for you today. Now, the ones that we had previously tested, in fact, they've sent me another couple. They obviously weren't happy that the previous ones were surviving, so I'm going to do the same thing to these new guys. This one is the push button version of the 600 light, and this one is the twist top version of the DX 600. And you'll recall these guys use the 18650 rechargeable lithium batteries, and they're usually around the 3000 milliamp hour rating. They can come a little bit bigger than that, 3400 I think. And these have been fantastic, reliable, pretty reasonable price point too. So, you know, and the beauty of these lights is you can really fill up your pockets with 2, 3, 4 of them and never be short of light while you're diving, particularly in places like caves, where it's obviously important to have plenty of redundancy. Now, they've got a new product which I was quite excited to see, the DGX 700. This is a twist version. I don't know whether it comes in a push button version as well, but the one interesting thing they've done is to change the battery to the 21700 batteries, which are just a bit bigger physically, but are also 5000 milliamp hours in size, which is nice. I've got a helmet light that I use which takes 21700 batteries, so it's quite nice to be able to, you know, have batteries that work across different platforms, so that's good. While we're talking about rechargeable batteries, one thing you'll notice, a lot of these torches come with just a single little battery charger like that, which is fine if you just own 1 or 2 of these torches. But if you start to collect quite a few of them and you've got lots and lots of batteries like I have, it's certainly worth investing in a bigger battery charger that you can do 4 or 8 of the batteries at the same time. Now, the other thing that's also been sent to me by Scubapro, and I should declare that I am a Scubapro ambassador, so I get to test a lot of cool stuff, but they have sent me a couple of their lights again. Now, I have already tested the Nova 850R, but since it's a fresh one, I might as well put that back in the pot again. This has got the 18650 battery, so that's good. But the new light that they've now sent me is the Nova 1000R. R stands for a slightly restricted, I think, light beam, 8 degree light beam, which is good in caves for you know, seeing where you're going, using it as a backup light. They make a W version, which is a wider angle beam, which is about 80 degrees from memory. Again, the difference is they've also introduced the 21700 batteries into this line of lights, which I quite like, you know, a fair bit more capacity in those batteries. They come with a little hood. I believe the reason for that is that so you don't shine your light in other divers' eyes. It sort of protects the top of the light, so maybe it stops you getting a bit of flare back from it, but I've been in the habit of just taking those off. It's just a rubber hood that comes off. You can use it or not as you choose. These have got 2 O-rings in them, which I'm sure is more than enough. The Dive Gear Express lights actually have 3 O-rings, which is potentially a good thing, I guess. These also have a little overpressure valve on the back, which I guess if the batteries do off gas for some reason, that's an added safety feature. Is that an issue with modern lithium rechargeable batteries? I'm not sure. I'm not a battery expert, but that's there for what it's worth. So these are good. All these lights these days, you know, they're amazing. They're made of you know, solid aluminium, and they just feel really robust and strong. So whatever you choose, whether it's the Scubapro or the Dive Gear Express lights, you know, I think you're getting really good products these days, and I'd be happy with either. Now, setting up the pressure pot takes a bit of time and and work, so I like to put as much stuff in there as I can. So this time I'm going to also put in a couple of GoPro housings just to see how they're going. Now I wanted to show you a housing that's new to me, but I have tested it down to 230 meters already, and that is one by the name of T-mount, the T-mount housings, which are rated to 250 meters. And I'll just show you what we have been using in the past, which is these these housings from Golem Gear. Now Golem Gear is no longer in existence, and I think Subgravity have taken over their range of products. Last time I checked, they didn't have the Golem Gear, or they didn't have this style of housing for the newer versions of GoPro cameras available. So when we went to New Zealand in February this year, and we were planning these dives beyond 200 meters, I had to find new housings for the GoPro 11s that I was using. And so I came across this T-mount housing, and we dived a couple of these without any problems to the 230 meter mark that we dived to, and I came away feeling pretty impressed with them. They're quite simple. They don't look quite as chunky and robust as the Golem Gear housings, but they performed very nicely. A couple of things: they do come with an anode in the side. This one has actually fallen out already, so that's just, you know, in normal usage. And I've subsequently used this out in a brackish cave out on the Nullarbor Plain, and it is suffering a little bit of dissimilar metal corrosion around the latches, which is a common problem for housings. And to be fair to the housing, you know, we're out there for a couple of weeks and the gear was not getting freshwater rinses as it should have been. So it was a pretty tough test on them. And there's just the earliest sign of some dissimilar metal corrosion. What I have done on other housings that suffer this sort of injury is to take off the latches and give it all a good clean, and just put a bit of Duralac, which is that stuff you can put between aluminium and steel fittings on boats, to try and prevent that. And I'll probably do that with these housings, just to try and prevent any further injury to them. Anyway, they're both going into the 300 meter test pot. This is only rated to 250, so we'll see how it fares. Now the final thing I'm going to show you, I'm not actually going to test it in the pot today, but before our last trip to the Pierce, you know, there was a possibility we were going to be going well beyond 230 meters, and so I had decided to put my Shearwater Nerd and Petrel off my Megalodon. These are dive can computers, so they've got the sort of wet connectors on them, and so I decided to put them into the pressure pot for two reasons: to make sure they could survive a 300 meter dive, but also to see what their depth calibration was like, so to see whether firstly they were aligned with each other, and also aligned with the pressure gauge on the testing pot, which to be honest I wasn't even sure whether the pressure gauge that I was pressurizing the pot to was accurate or not. So I'll show you the graphs, the downloads from those two computers that I did back in January this year, since we're having a pressure pot exercise. All right, so let's get on with it. I'll load up the pot with all this good stuff, and we'll show you the results afterwards. Well, that's always fun. I do enjoy putting things in there and trying to torture them. So what have we learnt? Well, pretty much 10 out of 10 success, I'd say. as you saw, two of the lights came out with a slight issue. One of the push button Dive Gear Express lights came out in a flashing mode, which is one of the reasons I'm always a little nervous about lights with the penetrating button. I've certainly had that problem with the big blue lights that I've talked about in the past, where they go into an SOS or flashing mode underwater. This was a simple flash that seemed easily fixed when it returned to the surface, but of course what would happen underwater? Would you be able to get it out of that flashing mode? I'm not sure. The twist-on lights, as predicted, performed well, although one of them was off when it came out. I just snugged it up slightly more and it turned back on again without any problems. So they were good, and of course the Scubapro lights seem to have performed faultlessly. They're still in their standby mode, still working perfectly, and I'll just make sure I can turn them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pushes, and they're both out of standby mode and completely off. So, you know, as I say, aren't we spoilt for choice? All these backup lights seem to work well to extreme depths, and of course you're always going to have redundancy. You can have a couple in your pocket, and these days you can afford to do so. If you're doing 200 metre dives, then you're going to have spent plenty of money on other stuff before you, so you don't have to worry about forking out for a couple of little backup lights. I'll show you the graphs from the computers that I mentioned. Oh, and of course the T-mount housing, I was careful to just dry the outside of it so no drops of water went inside, and when I opened it up, the paper towel inside was completely dry. So again, performed really well. I would never touch any buttons when I'm past more than 100 meters anyway on camera housing, so you just try and make sure it's set, and then you can leave it alone and it should be right till you get back to the surface. So 10 out of 10 for the little T-mount housings. What we're now looking at is downloads of the Nerd and Petrel computers. The Nerds are Nerd 2s, the Petrels are Petrel 2s, and I put both of mine and Craig's computers in the pressure pot, so there's 2 Petrels and 2 Nerds going down to 300 meters. Now if you look at the Petrel 2 downloads to start with, this one is mine and it maxed out at a depth of 309 meters. Craig's read a depth of 303 meters, so pretty consistent across that depth, and probably more accurate than the gauge on my pressure pot, to be honest. The next download is my Nerd 2, and you can see that it actually stops at 275 meters, and Craig's stopped at 268 meters. I checked in with Shearwater about this, and they said that their pressure sensor actually does max out at around 270 meters. So that's actually very important for us to know if we're planning dives beyond that depth. And I know there are very, very few people in the world who are doing that, but if you are, you do need to know that the Nerd 2 won't give you an accurate depth reading. Certainly below 270 meters, it'll just stop. And that's important for decompression calculations. But the good news is that your PO2 should still be reading accurately, because that is a direct effect on the millivolt output of the sensors. So you should still get accurate PO2 readings. So that's important information for deep divers to know, or extreme deep divers to know. And the good news is that all 4 of these computers seem to come out unscathed from the pot, so you can be pretty confident that the Shearwater products are going to be good to those crazy depths. Do not do that at home. But thanks Shearwater for making such great products. So there we go. I hope that was of use. Thanks Dive Gear Express for sending some lights to be tested. Thanks Scubapro for supplying a couple, and we'll see you in the next episode.